I made a video talking about the Hornets like maybe a month ago at this point. It went crazy. It got like hundreds of views. I was like, golly, bro. Like people like to see me talk about the Hornets apparently. And I'm here to talk about them again. I mean, if you want my full in-depth thing just before, like from a few weeks ago, I'm pretty much gonna be saying all that stuff in this video as well, or most of it at least. But last year, I'll put a card first of all, and now I actually can't remember. I think it's this corner. I think. I remember last video I pointed, or not last video, but one of the videos I pointed to the wrong corner, and I was like, I had to, whatever. Last year the Hornets were 27-55, 14th in the East. They got the second pick in the NBA draft, selected Brandon Miller, and this year, my projected record for them is 36-46, 11th in the East. And of course, the title of the last video I had is I believe in the Charlotte Hornets, and I don't know why. And that still remains true. I still don't know why I believe in this team. This team's depth is not that good. But I see this team with LaMelo Ball. I see this team with Terry Rozier. I see this team with Brandon Miller, who's one of my favorite rookies coming out of the draft. Mark Williams and Miles Bridges coming back now. And I have hope. I have hope. I think this team is going to actually be decent, or at least better than they were last year. I heard a stat from the Third of Our podcast. I was listening to them, and I think it was Kenny who said the Hornets are plus 500 or at least 500 team when LaMelo plays. LaMelo was injured for a good amount last year, and they had Dennis Smith Jr. starting at the 1. And no disrespect to Dennis Smith Jr., but I don't know how good you are compared to my guy LaMelo. LaMelo was an all-star in his second year. Second year, LaMelo was an all-star player already. So you gotta remember that and remember how good LaMelo actually is. These Ball brothers, man, when they're not injured, they be hooping. I'm telling you, when they're not injured. So if LaMelo can come back healthy and actually stay healthy for a good amount of the year, I can easily see this team being a play-in team. But also with the inconsistency, with the unreliability of this team, their depth isn't amazing. They are decently injury prone. So you never, well, not really the whole team. That's mainly just LaMelo, but we'll see what happens, really. We'll see what happens. I can talk about LaMelo more, but I actually want to talk a bit about Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller in Summer League, a lot of people saw his first few performances and already started doubting him. And of course, I saw him at the turnovers, the fouls, I saw all that. But at the same time, you can never take into account what happens in Summer League. You can never take it too seriously, I guess. Because Summer League, of course, is a decent representation of how good players are, sometimes. But other times, it doesn't mean anything. There are tons of guys who balled out in Summer League and did nothing in the league. And there's tons of guys who did horrible in Summer League and then balled out in the league. So it goes both ways. Of course, there are also guys who played bad in Summer League and played bad in the league, and then played good in Summer League and played good in the league. So you can never really take what happens in Summer League too much to heart. You always gotta view it from just like these are these players playing for the first time. Let's see what happens. If they mess up, that's fine. If they play amazing, that's great. So with Brandon Miller, of course, he did have some mess ups, but we also saw a bit of what he can do. We saw a bit of his potential. I was watching his college highlights earlier this year, and I was pretty impressed. His off-ball movement is great. He plays well in the fast break opportunities, and of course, with the team with LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and all these guys, and Miles Bridges, you're gonna have that type of style of play a lot, and I think I like that idea. I think this is 100% gonna be one of the more fun, underrated young teams in the league, because I believe in LaMelo, I believe in Brandon Miller, I believe in, I'm not gonna talk about that yet, but I believe in this team. I like this team. I like the composition of this young core. And moving on to another piece. Oh yeah, Brandon Miller, he's a good shooter as well. He was one of the best shooters coming to the draft. And with a guy like LaMelo who can dish assists to you wherever you are on the court, I'm excited to see how that goes. But yeah, another guy who I was curious about was Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges missed last year for interesting reasons, and now he's back. And of course, he hasn't played professional NBA basketball in a minute, so we can't expect too much from him. But I'm also interested to see how big of a contribution he makes to this team. Because when he was there, he was averaging like 20 a game, and he was in all-star conversations. And he was doing really, really well. Actually, I don't know if he was in all-star conversation, but he was doing really, really well. And if we can get that version of Miles, was I saying Mikal? Miles Bridges back, then that's a W 100%. He's a great lob threat for LaMelo. He can score on his own. He's a good player, man. And another player that I actually took time, like a lot of these guys on this team, I took time out of my day to watch their highlights. You have Mark Williams, and Mark Williams is a defensive monster, man. Mark Williams is really that guy. And I think he's one of the key pieces of this team that can really help this team get a good amount of wins, up to the 36 I have them getting. And I really like him, man. I think he's going to be really, really good, especially for this team where you have a bunch of offensive talent. And Brandon Miller's good defensively, but you still need a good amount of defense to help out. And that's what Mark Williams brings, man. So hopefully we can get that from him. Of course, we also want him to expand his offensive game, but he doesn't really need to do that. That's not completely necessary when you have LaMelo, Mikal Bridges, Miles Bridges, Terry Rozier, who I'm going to talk about next, Brandon Miller, all these guys on this team. Mark Williams doesn't need to be that guy offensive. I didn't even mention PJ Washington, who they recently re-signed. They re-signed him late, but still, PJ Washington is another guy on this team. Let me actually talk about him first. PJ Washington is he's an interesting guy because it was questionable if the Hornets were going to re-sign him, and they re-signed him way later than most of the other players got re-signed. He was one of the guys who was like stranded in free agency for a good amount of time before a team picked him up, which was his own team re-signing him. And I mean, I don't have much high expectations for him as I have for some of the other players on this team, but I still can see him contributing to this team and actually helping them do pretty well. Hopefully he has a good year, and hopefully he just helps his team do better. There's Nick Smith Jr., who is the guard they drafted in the draft, and he was one of my favorite guys in the draft. I had him going in the lottery, at least I'm pretty sure I had him going in the lottery, and he ended up just like right outside that. So I think Nick Smith Jr. could definitely be a really good player. He's like that type of spark plug type guy, and while I'm here, I guess I might as well look at his scouting report since I've done it for just about every other rookie I've talked about in this whole thing. This isn't supposed to be about the rookie specifically. I just be doing my thing. My comparison for him was Jordan Poole and Lou Williams, exactly. That guy off the bench who can be a spark plug and give you some buckets. Pretty good ball handler, great shot creator, good finisher, moves off the ball well. That would be great for LaMelo, I'm not gonna lie. Good shooter, he's really fast, and pretty good fast passer, decent off-ball defender. The only thing I had with him was skinnier frame. How will he deal with NBA physicality? Injuries with a question mark, which, like, you know what I'm saying? He's not that much of a playmaker, and he doesn't have the best on-ball defense. So those are some questions with him, but that's why I compared him to guys like Jordan Poole and Lou Williams, because he has that type of play style. He has the same strengths and the same weaknesses. So I think he could definitely be a really valuable asset to this team and bring some scoring off the bench. And also the fact that he can move off the ball adds a whole other element to the team with LaMelo being there. So he was an absolutely amazing pick on the Hornets side. Great job to the Hornets for picking him, because he should have gotten the lottery, but he didn't. And the Hornets stole him I don't even know when they picked him. I'm struggling to get back to it. They picked him somewhere right outside the lottery. It wasn't too low, but it was still like lower than he should have been. And then when you look at the rest of this team, you have Frank Ntilikina, who can play some defense. James Bouknight, who a lot of people believed in when he came out of the draft, but he hasn't really done much. Hopefully he can actually reach a point, especially with him being, he might have a bit of opportunity, not too much, but you know what I'm saying. There's Kai Jones, and it's funny because Kai Jones, I followed him on Instagram recently, and I be seeing him post all these goofy videos. It's hilarious, but you never know. Maybe he could have a good year. I don't know. I don't have expectations. It's Kai Jones. And then Cody Martin, the brother, he's there, and he was injured for a good amount of last year apparently as well. So hopefully he can come back and do well. And then there's Gordon Hayward. And I think Gordon Hayward is the perfect guy to round out this team. He can score a bit, he can play make a bit, he can really bring some veteran leadership to this team with tons of young guys with tons of potential. And this is why I really think this team has the potential to be a playing team. I don't have them as a playing team, but they could be a playing team. This team's ceiling is a solid 8-7 seed. But I have them down here because their youth, injury problems, and depth. Their depth isn't great. But I could definitely see this team being like the Pacers, because the Pacers last year, when Tyrese was playing, they were like the 7th seed in the East. Then Tyrese got injured and they lost games, a lot of games, and dropped all the way down out of the play-in. So I think a similar thing will probably happen with the Hornets. As cool as it would be if LaMelo stayed healthy, chances are he's going to get injured. Chances are somebody's going to get injured, and this team's not going to be as good as they can be. But I still expect this team to surprise a lot of people, at least in the first part of the season. So yeah. Also, one last thing, I guess. Two. I'm just going to read through my notes. LaMelo All-Star, ? That's put in brackets probably. He's probably going to be an all-star because of the talent in the East right now. The East isn't great. There are not many talented guards there. Jalen Brunson might be the best point guard in the East. So I see a pretty good chance of LaMelo making the all-star team. There's tons of young talent. I like their rookies, Brandon Miller and Nick Smith Jr., two of my favorite rookies in the draft class. Decent defense, good shooting. How good will Miles Bridges be? And Lob City. Because I kind of compared it with LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Mark Williams. I can kind of see the comparisons a little. But yeah, that's about it. That's all I really have to say for this Hornets team. This is one of my favorite teams in the league right now. Just based on the composition of the team, the young guys they have there, this is definitely one team that I would be keeping my eyes on if I was a neutral NBA fan. Which I am sometimes. So I might be actually watching this team a decent amount. For now, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment down below any tips, tricks, or ideas, or topics, you have for me to do on this channel. That'll be it for me today. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.